Well, I think a will puts you back in the driving seat as to what's going to happen with your estate. If you've got no will, we have a set of legislation that determines how your estate is to be distributed, and that's effectively decided by the government in an Act of Parliament. And very often people want different divisions than set out in that legislation, particularly if they have an unmarried partner or they care for stepchildren and things like that, because the legislation is quite old-fashioned and doesn't perhaps reflect current marital and non-marital arrangements, and blended families aren't very well catered for in that legislation. So a will's a very good idea to ensure the estate goes to the people that you want to inherit. You can also deal with some of the more practical things in that will, such as choosing what's going to happen with a pet, which is obviously very important if you're the last one. So if you haven't got a widow or a widower, guardianship of children is important and something that could go in a will, and it gives people a lot of reassurance that they've made those decisions, so that people do know what they want to happen when they've passed away.
I think there's also a lot of things that perhaps you wouldn't see in the will that need to be communicated. You mentioned pets, children, just generally people's wishes, and part of planning for that later life or the end of life is that communication with those people close to you as to what you wish to happen, and also just general things as to letting people know that you've got that life policy that we said about, and another practical thing I would mention is the noting down who your advisors are and who your close ones should go to on the event of your death, whether that's your financial advisor who looks after your financial affairs, your investments, and maybe somebody different about your pension, your accountant, just a full list of things like that would help the surviving.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Lots of people have a will, they have put things in place, they have made decisions, they've made wise investments. But if their loved ones who are left behind don't know where all that documentation is, actually lots of things can be missed. Dealing with the probate can be very complicated and there can be huge delays. So I do think communication is the key. And it's a difficult conversation to have. We've talked about that ourselves. Nobody really wants to talk about it. But having those discussions, perhaps not at the end of life, but much earlier. So we talked about younger people doing that. It's a really good idea to share some of the wishes that you've got. And you might not want everyone to know what investments you've got and how much money you've got and what assets you have got. But at least if they know where to look or who to ask about these things, when you've gone, that's a great help. So who is your financial advisor? Who is your accountant? Which solicitor do you use?
Yeah, exactly. That's the sort of thing I was thinking. It's not necessarily going into the details of the inheritance tax planning or the reasons behind the will writing. It's that practical step.